Hello everyone. Today I'm going to explain to you how to solve a certain kind of weighted average problem that you might run into in the GRE. This kind of question has shown up in the GRE Power Prep software, and you might encounter variations of it on a real test. So it's important to know how to go about solving this the quickest way possible. And so here's the question: of 150 shirts sold, 90 shirts were sold at prices between $20 and $40, and each of those shirts, $20 and $40 each, and 60 shirts were sold at prices between $60 and $80 each. Okay, so there are two groups, and they want you to compare the average of the prices of the 150 shirts with 60. Well, technically, if you know how to calculate a weighted average, you could calculate the average of the 150 shirts, of the 90 shirts if they're sold at the lower price, and the other 60 shirts if they're sold at a lower price, and calculate a weighted average that way. But that's going to take more time than you might have allocated for this problem. So let's think about a quick way to solve this. So first of all, you have two prizes, a lower range price and a higher price. So the $20 price is the low case scenario for the 90 shirts, and the $60 price is the low price scenario for the 60 shirts. So if both the 90 and the 60 shirts were sold at the lowest possible prices, that's one scenario. We could find what the average price is. And then if the same shirts, 90 and 60 shirts, were sold at the highest possible price, 40 and 80, then we could find, again, the weighted average in that case. And if both cases are lower than, for example, 60, quantity B, then it means that quantity B will always be greater. If both cases are always greater than quantity B, then quantity A is greater. So let's see how we can go about this. So in general, if you have items, let's say 90 shirts here and 60 shirts here, and so I'll just put number here, number of shirts, and then P for price. If the price of the 90 shirts was 20 and price of 60 shirts was, let's see, that was 60, the lower price for the 60 shirts was 60, then essentially you could calculate a weighted average, price times number. Oops, let me undo this here. So if you multiply each price by the number of items and divide by the total number of items, you'll get a weighted average. But we don't need to do that because that's going to take a little more time. So what we should do here is think about if the shirts were sold at if you had the same number of items in each group, so you had 60 shirts and 60 shirts here, then the average price would be the average of the two prices. So for example, if I have 10 oranges and 10 oranges, and I'm selling them at $20 each, then the average price of the 20 oranges will still be 20. So if you have the same number of items in each group, then the average price is just the average of the two prices. But if you have different numbers of items, then the average price will be weighted toward the group that has more items. So for example, if this group had 50 oranges, then the average price will be closer to the price of the 50 oranges, price per orange of the 50 oranges. So if this was like sold at $30 per orange, $50 at $30 per orange, 50 oranges at $30 per orange, then you will have the average price shifting toward 30. It'll be closer to 30 than $20. So the same idea can be used to solve this problem. We have 90 shirts at $20 each and 60 shirts at $60 each. Since 90 shirts, we have more shirts in this group, the price will be closer, will be toward 90. So if we had 60 shirts each, in each group, then the average price will be average of the two prices, 20 and 60. The average would have been smack in the middle here, $40, the average of 20 and 60. But since there are more shirts in this first group, the average price is actually less than $40 because the weight here is greater. So it's going to be moving toward the groups whose items are more. So if there are more shirts here, then the average price will shift toward the price of that group. So it will be less than 40. If there were $120 items in the second group, then the price would have been, average price would have been greater than 40. So you start by assuming that they're the same number of items, therefore you find the average price by averaging the prices of the two categories. So 20 and 60 average out to 40. And then you ask yourself, which group has more items? So this first group has more items, so the price is actually going to be shifted toward the price of the first group, so it'll be less than 40. So in the worst case scenario where the prices are sold at the lowest price, the shares are sold at the lowest price, we find that the average price, let me just call it AVG, will actually be less than 40. So we can make it, we can at least begin to try to answer the question. In the worst case scenario, what's true? So in the worst case scenario, the average of the 150 shirts will be less than 40. That's what we just found. Okay, so now we should ask ourselves, what about the best case scenario where the prices are, we're selling the shirts at the best possible price or highest possible price, $40 each. So in that second case, let me rewrite the information. So again, we have 90 shirts at this time. So 90 and 60 shirts, let me put those two though. And then the prices, the best case prices will be $40 and $80. So let me put that down as well. 40 here and 80 here. Now, if you're selling these 150 items at those prices, again, if there were the same number of items, the price will be the average of these two prices, which will be 60. But now, since there are more items in the first group, the price will actually be less than 60. It will be shifted toward the price of the 90 items. So in this second case, we're finding that the average price, again, I call it average, so let me just write AVG, will be less than 60. So in the first case, we had average was less than 40. In the second case, average is less than 60. So in both cases, the average will be less than 60, which is quantity B. So we can answer the question, quantity B is greater because even if you sell at the highest possible price, quantity B will still be greater than the average of the 150 shirts. So the answer to the question is B. But let's look at, if you wanted to actually calculate the weighted average, let me show you what you might have done. So let me clear the sheet again. If you have 90 shirts at, so there were two prices. Let's use the highest possible price, 40 for the first group and 80 for the second group. Here's 40, and the second group was 60 shirts at $80. If you wanted to calculate the average of this, there's a weighted average formula. The way I write it is average, which is the weighted average, is equal to A1, the average of the first group, times N1, the number of items in the first group, plus A2, the average of the second group, times N2, the number of items in the second group, divided by the total number of items. So that's N1 plus N2. So let me write that as well. So that's going to be divided by N1 plus N2. Now, if you plug in these values, A1 is the average price of the first group, 40, times N1, which is 90, plus A2, which is the average price of the second group, 80, times the number of items in the second group, N2, 60. If you divide that by the total number of items, which is N1 plus N2, 90 plus 60, or 150, you'll get the average price if the items are sold at the highest possible prices in each group. So divided by 150. So let me pull up my calculator here. And so 40 times 90. So I just need to pull my calculator here. And this is going to be, in a moment, I said the 40 times 90 plus 80 times 60. So 40 times 90 is 3,600, and we're going to add that to 80 times 60 is actually 4,800. So just type that 4,800, and we're dividing that result by 150, 150. And so in that case, the average would be 56. But we already found that out without doing this calculation. We found that the average of the two groups when you sell these items at the highest possible prices will be less than 60. So our conclusion was right when we said that the average will be less than 60, but we didn't need to calculate the actual value, 56. We just have to, it was enough to have a general idea how that average relates to the quantity in B, which is 60. So if you can conclude that the average is less than 60, it's just as good as actually calculating, except calculating it takes more time. So I hope that helps you see how to solve this problem more quickly without actually calculating the weighted averages in each case. So if you like my explanation, then please like my post. I'll be posting more explanations of problems like these weighted average problems and other topics in the coming days. And so stay tuned. If you like to see more of these problems solved, then subscribe to my channel as well. And if you want to ask any clarifying questions, then here is my email. Feel free to send me an email about any questions that you may have, and I'll respond to your email as soon as I can. So that's my email at gmail.com. So send me any questions you have about weighted averages or the test in general, GRE. I also teach GMAT prep courses, so you can ask me GMAT or GRE questions. I'll be happy to answer your questions. gmail.com. Okay, stay tuned and check back later for other videos.